Hey guys, it's Mr. Schmidt here, and in this video we're going to wrap up what shifts the demand curve by looking at complements and substitutes. Okay, so these two I've saved for just this video by themselves because they do tend to be the two most challenging for students, and so I wanted to give them their own video just so we could break them down a bit better. So let's start with complements. When I say compliments here, I don't mean like saying something nice to somebody. I mean two goods that go together. You always see them together. So like the classic, right? PB and J, right? Peanut butter and jelly, right? Those two things, you see them together all the time, right? So as an example, what would happen if the price of peanut butter, increased? What would happen? Well, we know what would happen in the market for peanut butter, right? I mean, we could do the demand for peanut butter. Remember what happens when, the price of a good increases, right? We move along the demand curve. So for peanut butter, right, it would just be a movement along the demand curve, right? But what about for jelly? What would happen to the demand for jelly? Well, if you are buying less peanut butter, which is what we're showing here, you're probably also buying less jelly because you tend to buy them together. So if you're buying less of one, that probably means you're buying less of the other. But to show this with jelly, what we're going to do here is we're actually going to shift the demand curve for jelly to the left. Okay, so it's a little bit different on the jelly side, right? Because what we're saying here is in the peanut butter market, we're moving along the demand curve. We're just because all we change is the price of peanut butter. But in response to that, right, this is step one, this is step two. In response to that, the demand for jelly at all prices is shifting to the left. There's less demand at all prices than before, right? So that's the idea of complements. And so we can go ahead, just like we did the last time, and broaden this out to move left, move right with demand. So what has to happen with complements for there to be a shift? So again, we're going to say there's two goods, and we're going to say good B is the good whose demand is going to shift left or right, just like jelly did. So this would mean to move left for good B, the price of good A would have to increase, right? Because if the price of good A increases, I buy good A and good B together. I'm buying less of good A, I'm buying less of good B. And the opposite's also true, that if the price of good A decreased, that's incentivizing me to buy more of good A and therefore more of good B. Okay? So again, the way we show that, movement along the demand curve for good A and then a shift of the demand curve for good B. Okay? And again, practicing with this is going to be helpful. And there's a lot of practice out there you can find on the internet that I'll give you. You'll be great at this. It just takes some time to let it settle in your brain. So that's complements. The other one that I want to talk about, and the last shifter of demand, is substitutes. And we've already talked about substitutes a little bit when we did the substitution effect. This is or, right? If complements is the word and, I buy peanut butter and jelly. Substitutes is I buy one or the other, right? So maybe ketchup or mustard, right? I'm going to buy ketchup or mustard, right? So let's do that as an example. So let's say we've got ketchup and mustard, and we're going to say the price of ketchup price increases for ketchup. Okay, so ketchup's more expensive. So what are you going to do? Well, you're going to switch to the cheaper alternative, which would be mustard. So in the ketchup market, for its demand, again, it's a movement along the demand curve because the price of that good changed, right? So this is for ketchup. And then for mustard, remember we said we're going to buy more mustard now because the substitute was more expensive, so we're switching to the cheaper good. So the demand for mustard is going to increase. It's a right shift. Okay? So we moved from the more expensive good to the cheaper good, and so we show that by moving along the demand curve for the more expensive good now and shifting the demand curve for the good I'm going to buy more of now. So we can generalize this, and we can say, hang on a second, let me erase that. Well, do I want to erase that? Sorry, I don't remember how I drew it last time, so I'm just going to do this. Sorry, guys. So we'll say subs, and then we're going to say good B is the sub we would switch to or away from, and then it's move left or move right. So if move left would be if the price of good A decreased, right? So if good A is cheaper, I'm buying less of its substitute, right? So if the opposite happened and, ketchup became less expensive, I would buy less mustard because I'm going to stick with what's cheaper. And then, of course, just like we saw before, if the price of good A increased, then we would buy more of its substitute because it's relatively cheaper to good A. And so complements and substitutes are what we call related goods because it's two goods that are related to each other in some way. Complements, two goods that go together. Substitutes, two goods that do not go together. You buy one or the other. So with all of these shifters of demand, what I recommend that you do is just practice shifting the demand curves as much as you possibly can. The more you do it, the easier it will become because there's only so many things they can do with demand, right? There's only so many shifters. And once you know what moves what, it will become easier to you. So that's all for this video on shifting the demand curve using complements and substitutes. Until next time, have a great day.